All right, so I'm filming a TV show. It's for kids, right? And I could use your help.
I got you.
All right, so it's called the ABCs of Fitness, right? And I have to go letter by letter through the alphabet. But I don't really have too much experience talking to children. So I was wondering if you could help me. Today's letter is B. And it just so
Perfect.
happens to be our name, yours, mine. So what do you think? What fitness word would make sense to use with the letter B?
So I'm going to take a slightly different approach to a fitness word for the letter B.
Okay.
And that word is brave. And that's something that I
Oh.
really encourage with my kids. And I actually have a business that supports the mantra of practice brave. Because being brave isn't about feeling ready, it's about getting reps of doing
Oh.
scary things and hard things. And I think when you are a kid and maybe sometimes you're intimidated to try something new, whether it's a new sport, a new activity, going to a new school, you have to be brave. And the more reps you get of practicing brave, the stronger you get.
I like that. And you said the magic word. Reps. Welcome to Reppin Fitness.
Thank you for having me.
Brick Headstrong! Brick Headstrong! He's got the reps to you! He's got the reps to you! Brick Headstrong!
All right, Bree. Have you been to the gym today?
I did, yeah.
Oh, nice. What'd you work today?
Well, I actually went to Jiu-Jitsu.
Whoa.
I
Okay, tell me
know.
about that.
Slightly different kind of gym. So while I do love lifting weights, I have also fallen in love with the sport of jiu-jitsu, and I've been doing that for a
Nice.
little over 5 years now.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah,
Now you do
yeah,
that on top of working out too?
I do.
Nice. And you're a
Yeah.
coach.
And I'm a coach, so all of my worlds are just really interconnected.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. But do you remember the first time you went to the gym?
I remember the first time I was exposed to the weight room, and I was in
Oh,
high school
in high
playing water
school.
polo. Yeah, and I was the only girl playing on a boys team. And
Oh,
so they went to the weight room and I went along with them and I bench pressed because what else do like high school boys do, you know? So,
that's a
um,
B2. That's a
yeah,
B2. Bench press.
perfect.
Bench
Bench
press.
press. Yes. We're finding a theme here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was the first time I had exposure to the weight room, and I always took value in being strong. Like
Yeah.
that was something I was bought into even all those years ago when skinny was something that people, like a lot of girls were striving towards. I always felt like more aligned with being strong for the sports I was in and just the body that I had.
Now I was just thinking, speaking of B's, your
Hmm.
last name,
Yeah,
Battles.
yeah, that's my real last name.
It's like a double word score.
I know, I know. It's
Nice.
honestly worked really well for branding, for business, for all the different things.
That's
So,
great. Nice
yeah,
domain name.
I
BriannaBattles.com.
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
good
good.
one.
I
It's
like
a
that. I
really
like
good
that.
one.
Now, we already touched on this a little bit.
Yeah,
You were a coach and an athlete before you became a mom, right?
I was. Yeah.
What surprised you the most about training during pregnancy? Did you train during pregnancy?
I definitely did, and
Oh,
I
okay.
have I have two boys, so another B
Oh,
word.
nice.
And during my first pregnancy, there just wasn't a lot of information about needing to do anything differently. So
Right.
we really made a big. Speaking of boys, I have one creeping in here. Baby,
Hey, I
go away.
see you. What are you doing?
He's
Come on
probably
in.
like, what? I know. I have my headphones in, so he can't hear me. He just sees me talking to you.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
no, that's okay. That's okay.
So yeah, it was with that kid actually that I was pregnant with him about 11 years ago, and there just wasn't a lot of information out there. And I think that you know, growing up in the era that I did, which was like where women started to value being strong, and we
Right.
were wanting to lift more, we rejected the idea of being fragile and of needing to make a lot of
Yeah.
modifications. So we kind of wanted to keep doing what we were always had always done, and, rally against a lot of the generic and short-sighted advice of like, well, don't lift over 20 pounds. It was like, okay, like I lift 200 pounds regularly, and I wanted to keep doing
Whoa.
that. So, you sort of keep, I think there was a mentality back then of just trying to like maintain ability instead of scale back. And that led to a lot of struggles postpartum. And then with my second pregnancy, I was a lot more adaptable with my training. I wasn't trying to like prove anything to myself or trying to like maintain. It was just more about being adaptable, both with like my belief systems, but also my training approach.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I know we were doing B words,
Yes.
but you said a P word that I'm not too familiar with.
Okay.
I know I'm a puppet. That's not the word I was thinking.
Okay.
But what's postpartum? What's that mean?
Yeah, that's the period of time after you've had a baby. So
okay.
technically, postpartum is forever, but more specifically, I would say it's about that first year after having a baby.
The first year. Okay.
About that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you've said before there's a huge gap in the support for female athletes during and after pregnancy when we're talking about postpartum, right?
Yeah.
What does that gap actually look like when you're in the gym?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of coaches and practitioners that just don't know how to support women on behalf of what their current interest is, like how they like to exercise, what their long-term exercise and performance goals are, and then the changes that happen to their body during pregnancy, from their core health to their pelvic health, and just all of the structural and hormonal changes that occur during these very specific seasons. And I think sometimes pregnant and postpartum women are viewed as being either really fragile or they're viewed as being really invincible. And there's not a lot of guidance for navigating the middle of that spectrum. And that's what I try to help with as a coach.
Oh, that's great. That's great news. Now, you probably heard this before. Just listen to your body, right?
Yeah.
Just listen to your body, right?
Yeah.
What do you wish more coaches and maybe moms understood about that phrase?
Yeah, it irks me because I think a lot of, because the thing is, like, athletes are good at pushing through. And I'd say women in general are really good at just sort of like dismissing, being like, I'm fine, it's fine. And then we have a culture where there's a lot of expectations to just like figure it out. And that's normal. It's normal to pee your pants when you sneeze or when you jump. Or I know I'm trying to.
Does that happen?
That does happen to a lot of people. Or,
oh, no.
So I think a lot of things just get like normalized and dismissed. And so it's hard for a lot of women to either know what changes to make and then nevertheless like create some advocacy for themselves and have coaches and practitioners who can help.
Right. And there's probably a lot of pressure on women that they have to feel like they got to bounce back immediately after having a baby, right? How does that affect their relationship with fitness, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it creates a battle with their relationship because with their battle with their relationship with fitness, because they're trying to change their body composition. They're trying to find a normal workout routine again. They want to get back to what they were doing before, but everything about their life has changed. There's a whole new human to take care of and to get to know. There's a new version of yourself that gets born when you become a mom.
Right.
And you can't expect to go back. You have to figure out a way to move forward with the person that you're becoming and, the baby that you've just created. There's just so many changes. There is no going back. You cannot undo it. But that doesn't mean that you cannot become an even better version of yourself, like as an athlete and as a person.
That's a great point, actually.
Yeah.
So tell me, Bree, what's the first thing you'd say to a mom who's feeling maybe discouraged or afraid to return to the gym after giving birth?
Yeah. A sentiment that I share a lot and has become sort of like the mantra attached to my business is that athleticism does not end when motherhood begins.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's an evolution of who you are as an athlete. And like, you're not washed up. You're not too old. Like, your glory days are not behind you. And in fact, I would argue that you discover the best version of yourself as an athlete and with your fitness when you become a mom, because now it's like you're instilling a value system in your family. It's not just about you, and it's not just about looking a certain way. It's about feeling a certain way, and then raising the next generation of kids who are also discovering how to be their own version of little athletes. And that part
Right.
is really cool.
Yeah, you want to be able to keep up too. I want to be able
Yeah,
to do that
yeah, and
stuff.
it's fun. It's fun. My boys are a little bit older now, but they have grown up in the gym with me from the
Oh,
beginning, from the very beginning, like pregnant with them in the gym, both working out and coaching. They've coached alongside of me for years, and now it's cool to
whoa.
see how all of that has translated into their sports and just their willingness to, be active with our family.
Have you coached them at all?
I have, but more so in like a fun way of like working out in our driveway, in the
Whoa.
garage with like the sleds and stuff like that, and they love it. And like we have a bunch of little boys that live on our street, and so we just get like a pack of little boys that are working out here, and it's fun to see that. It's fun that this has been normalized, whereas growing up, like that wasn't a normal thing for me to see parents training like that, and so I love that these kids have access and examples of how to work out and that it can be fun. It's not something they have to do. It's something they want to do, and they can see
Yeah.
how it makes them better at their sports.
Now, wait a minute. You mentioned your garage. Do you have a garage
Yeah,
gym?
I do have a garage gym.
Oh, I have to come visit. I got to see this. That
Yes.
sounds
Yeah.
awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
jealous.
That was a gift that was given to me a long time ago. Like
That's the
I've
gift that
had
keeps
that
giving.
truly though. So I think it's a really great investment. I think I've had a garage gym for probably, I don't know, 12, 13 years, if not more. It was
Wow.
one of the first investments we made when we were really early in our marriage. And so before kids, and that was just, and that gym has lasted a very long time. And I like having my normal gym membership too, but it's nice to be able to just go into my garage and work out, especially when, I was in the seasons of early mom life where it was hard to get away. Like it was so convenient having access to some gym equipment, and I just go into the garage and bring my kids with me, or I could knock out a workout during nap time.
Now, how many coaches do you think you've helped train?
We've been able to train close to 5,000 coaches around the world through my certification, which is pregnancy and postpartum athleticism.
Get out of here. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been really cool to see the evolution of this. I first created that certification in 2017, right before I had my second baby. And it just has gradually grown in influence and impact. And it's been cool to see how many different coaches and practitioners are doing their own thing with what they've learned through that curriculum.
Now, let me ask you this then. What's
Yeah.
the biggest blind spot they tend to have when it comes to pregnancy, or that new word I learned, postpartum clients?
The biggest blind spot, I would think that it's still either being like really dismissive, like you can either,
Dismissive,
yeah, like people saying, I don't coach this population, or they're considered this special population. But if you coach women, this is a common population of women in your gym. This is a common
Oh,
population of your clientele. Mothers make up a majority of gym members. If you really think about different like small group training environments, and of course this doesn't apply to everybody, but there is a good majority of coaches out there that don't realize they work with pregnant and postpartum clients, and they are unprepared to work with that population of client because this isn't taught. Like we're not taught things about there's the different considerations and changes that happen to their body during pregnancy, and then the rehabilitation process postpartum. So there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of these issues that aren't, like we need to know how to coach women in general, and then we especially need to know how to coach them through pregnancy and postpartum, because what happens during those seasons are really transformational for what I like to refer to as their lifetime of athleticism. Pregnancy and
oh,
postpartum oftentimes highlight the need for more body awareness and changes and understanding of your body. The whole keep doing what you've always done no longer serves you. And so you have to evolve your fitness. You have to evolve your mindset and your approach to training, again, on behalf of this lifetime of athleticism. These are truly short seasons, but they're impactful seasons.
Is there something that you'd recommend for people reframing their fitness goals during postpartum period?
Yeah, I think it's just giving yourself a lot of grace and a lot of
Right.
time to recover. We look at an ACL injury. So if somebody hurts their knee and they have to have surgery, or even if it's just like a really, bad injury, we know that like that takes time to heal from, and you have
Right.
to do some rehabilitative exercises, and you slowly, increase range of motion, and then you add volume, and then you add more load, and then you add more like dynamic movements. But we've dismissed the postpartum recovery process, even though growing a baby and having a baby is a really big deal. Physiologically, our body changes so much, but we can honor an ACL injury or some sort of orthopedic injury, but we can't do the same, or culturally, we don't do the same for pregnancy and postpartum recovery. So I think if we can understand, like, our body does have to recover from this, and taking that time will ultimately be the fastest path towards doing the things that you want to do. Rushing the process oftentimes backfires.
Right. You can't just jump right back into things. You got to take it
No.
nice and easy.
Right. Yeah. Just gradual progression. Like, it's truly just progressive overload, but we forget that. Coaches, practitioners, athletes, we like suddenly dismiss the value of just true progressive overload in that postpartum period, because there's so much urgency and desire to, quote, get back, right? So they just want to get back to feeling like themselves again, looking like themselves again. And that desperation is really understandable. But at the same time, that will not serve that long-term health and wellness and performance.
Right. You know, we spend a lot of time here talking about moms, but the moms, they've got a partner, maybe a dad in the picture. What's something that they can do or say that actually helps during this journey? What can they do to be supportive?
Yeah, I think it's just, it's validating, and it's not just like asking what they can do to help. It's taking that action and being like, yeah, you go to the gym, I got the baby, where they're not having, moms aren't having to choose between going to the gym and being with a baby, and encouraging that time for themselves, and just taking action and being like a really involved parent, so that the mental load does not have to always be on the mom, because that mental load weighs so heavily that sometimes adding an extra thing, even if it's like a positive thing, like working out and taking care of themselves, it just becomes too much. And, moms need a lot of support, especially postpartum. Like, they really, in those first few months postpartum, there is such a need for involvement from, their partner, and just in their community in general, and not waiting to be told what to do, but just doing the little things, and it makes a big difference.
Right. And you mentioned community,
Yeah.
You've built an entire community and a business around this whole mission, right?
Yeah.
What's one moment that made you stop and think, this is why I do this? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been seeing the evolution of, like, I came into the strength and conditioning scene when there were very few women in strength and conditioning.
Right.
And
How long
ultimately,
ago was this? How long ago?
Probably a little over 15 years, I think.
Okay.
Like, I
That lines up,
graduated in 2008. And I remember, like, going to an NSCA conference and looking around the room, and I was like, man, there's just like not a lot of women here, like, at all, And so I came into the strength and conditioning world, in like the late 2000s. And there weren't a lot of women. And back then it was truly like, well, you go into teaching, or you go into coaching, or like working for somebody. And so entrepreneurial opportunities weren't really promoted in an exercise science, like from an exercise science perspective or a kinesiology perspective.
Right.
So I think the moment that, like, has really stood out to me is the fact that, like, as a woman and a mom, I've built a business that supports moms, supports female athletes, and encourages more women to get involved in coaching to further support women lifting and women being involved in fitness. And in a really short time period, like, that's a whole cultural change in what we've seen. And so sometimes I have to, like, stop and be like, dang, I remember, like, where we started and how, like, this was viewed as such a weird niche, or something like, oh, wait, what do you do? And it still is for a lot of people, but ultimately it's proved that there's a big demand, and we're seeing more female coaches step up to support not just women training, but mothers training. And that changes, an entire narrative for the future of how we're raising that next generation, and how they're going to experience health, fitness, and athleticism.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes, like you said.
Yeah.
Even in sports in general. You said you were one of the only women on the team.
Yeah.
But now there's other women's sports, like wrestling. Wrestling's a big thing in schools now. It's awesome.
I love it. Me too. It's so cool to see. Like, we've made so much progress, and I feel like I I don't feel that old, but then when I look back and like there's just been so much change and in a lot of good ways, and I know a lot of people want to argue on social media, and like nitpick things, but ultimately I think it's been a really positive trajectory of the opportunities and the attention that women's sports are getting, more little girls being involved in sports that were typically male dominated. Like it's been a really cool thing to see, and an even cooler thing to be part of as a coach and as an athlete and now as a mother.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, and like we were saying, there's been a lot of changes. Now,
Hmm.
does one thing come to mind that you wish gym culture would do differently when it comes to supporting women? Not just talking about pregnancy, postpartum, just in general.
We've created space for women to feel more comfortable in the gym, and I love to see that change. I think that just maybe making it more accommodating for moms and coaches getting like furthering their education. I think we live in a very social media based world where
Right.
you save a few posts that you see on social media from somebody and you're like, oh, well, now I know how to like coach somebody who's pregnant because I saw this post and there's like, a couple different points that they have, instead of like really immersing yourself and being a continual learner, because you are never too old or too experienced to learn
Never.
something new. And I feel like the more women get into the gym, the more we're going to be coaching them through seasons like pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, and like, again, across this lifespan. And saving a couple posts on social media and just like repeating and trying to find a formula is not how coaching works. Coaching
Right.
is a continual evolution of education, of experimentation, and of a lot of implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if someone is listening, right, and they're a coach, but they don't feel equipped to help postpartum clients, what's the first step they should take separate to going to your website?
Yeah, I was going to say, just have them go to
We'll
my
get there.
website
We'll get
and
there.
yeah. I think just honestly, like consuming content, like that's
Right.
where it can be positive, is like there are a lot of like, listen to my podcast, listen, like look at some of
Oh,
the posts where we can dial in some of the different considerations that there are. I think just understanding like global, like some of these global themes for postpartum athletes is really key, like the fact that they need to rehab, that you can refer them to a pelvic health physical therapist, that they're going to need support and a lot of like, again, progressive overload, to
oh,
rehab the entire body, not just focus on one thing, but the whole body needs to get stronger and improved over time. And that their lifestyle is changing. Like, so just kind of like getting a global idea of what's going on with the postpartum body. And from there, we can get into some of the specifics that will really move the dial forward for both the coach and the client.
I love that term. Progressive overload. One of my
Yeah.
favorites. Lots of
Yes.
reps. Lots of reps. I love it. I
Yes.
love it. Now tell me about your podcast.
Yeah, it's the Practice Brave podcast. So that,
Practice Brave.
brings us back to the letter B, being
Yeah, how
brave.
about that loop? Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I
We're good
know.
at
Well
this.
done. So yeah, it's a Practice Brave podcast, and I interview a lot of different people involved in the strength and conditioning community, the women's health community, and then I share a lot of different like personal topics, whether it's about coaching and like just raising my own kids or my own process as an athlete, a little bit about jiu-jitsu here and there. So it's really just more of like the Brianna Battles brand, where
Oh,
we focus on just all the different things that I feel really called to, but there's an intersection of it. So yeah.
nice. Now, we got introduced through Andrew Coates, right? Andrew
Yes.
Coates. He's the
Yes.
mayor of fitness. Currently the mayor of
Truly.
fitness. Now,
Truly.
what happens if Brick runs for mayor? Do I have your vote?
You have my vote.
Well, you heard it here first.
Is that a challenge to Andrew?
It is. I've been asking everybody.
Okay.
I've been asking everybody.
Okay.
I don't know if I can
Okay.
beat him. You're actually one of the
Yeah.
first humans to tell me they would vote for me. Everybody else,
Oh.
they said to me, well, the human, I'll vote for Andrew. But for puppets, you got me. You got me.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Andrew is an incredible connector,
He
and
is.
he does a really great job of elevating the like entire network,
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
appreciate that. I feel like that's a long lost skill, and I'm so glad that he's brought that back so authentically.
Right. Now you get to meet puppets. You get to meet puppets through them.
Who knew? I didn't
Right?
have that on my 2025 bingo
Oh, yeah,
card,
me
so
neither.
this is exciting.
Meeting all these humans, me neither. I didn't think so either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now hold on though. We're at the gym, right? Let's just pretend we're at
Yeah.
the gym. What's your favorite movement right now? What makes you feel strong?
Oh, I've been going to a commercial gym again
Oh,
after taking some time away and mostly spending time in my garage gym. So I've really been loving, there's this like cable hip thrust machine,
cable
and
hip
I
thrust.
really like that because, barbell hip thrust, sometimes it's just like you got to like load up all the plates and then
Oh,
that
yeah.
part is hard.
It's an
And so the
exercise itself.
cable, yeah, so much easier. You can easily manipulate like the volume and, the load really quickly. So I've been really enjoying having access to that.
Do you think that helps you with other lifts?
Oh yes, absolutely. And in jiu-jitsu too. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
value like the performance side, the aesthetic side, and then just the complementary to, lifting in general and being strong.
All right. So you have a garage gym.
I
Let's
do.
say Brick is going to open a mom's gym, right?
Hmm.
What's one thing I absolutely need in this gym? I need to know, just in case I get into it.
I think you need a barbell because I think more
Barbell.
women need to be familiar
It's
with
a
how to
B.
use a barbell. I know.
We're killing it with
So
that.
easy. I
Yeah.
know. It really worked out well.
A barbell. Okay.
Yeah, get a barbell because, again, there's a lot of us who maybe grew up with some exposure to that, but there's still a lot of women that are really intimidated. And I think that, if coaches have the opportunity to educate and use a barbell as part of, instilling some of these movement patterns, and it makes fitness less intimidating.
Okay. So let's say you got that barbell, a
Hmm.
toddler, and a cup of coffee in your hand, right?
Yeah.
What song's
Yeah.
playing in the background? What music you listening to?
In this season of life, we got a lot of Kendrick Lamar in my
Kendrick
house.
Lamar.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I got you.
I
Nice.
got two boys. We like hip hop, and they are obsessed with Kendrick Lamar. So I feel like we're listening to that a lot
Nice.
of the time.
Well, Bree.
Normal mom things,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for being a guest on Reppin Fitness.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, one last question, though, before we go.
Yeah.
What's one thing motherhood taught you that coaching never did?
Man, that's a really good question. I think it taught me truly about the levels of unpredictability and resiliency, and that we are incredibly adaptable. And I think we like know that as coaches, but at the
Right.
same time, we like to we have a semi-predictable process. Like if you do X, Y, and Z, then it's going to yield this outcome. This is how you're going to peak. You'll be able to lift this load on this estimated timeline. And with motherhood, there's just so many variables that you have to anticipate, and some things that you just can't control. So I think it just teaches you like you just have a whole new appreciation for your resiliency, your adaptability, and that while progress may not always be linear, it's still progress.
That's it. Stop being so hard on
Yeah.
yourselves. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Consistency
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah. And there's seasons for everything.
Seasons for everything. Well, hey,
Yes.
I learned a lot today. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And for all those out there watching, B is for Brianna Battles.
Perfect.
We'll see you on the next episode.